Well, this one did not go according to plan, that's for sure. Raymond Felton did his best, but the San Antonio Spurs were just way too much for the Thunder tonight, winning this thing 116-102, and the game actually wasn't even as close as the final score would indicate. The Thunder struggling now out of the All-Star break, having lost 4 of the first 5 games after the break, and now 4 in a row. We welcome you back into the Fox Sports Oklahoma studios. John Rhadigan, Antonio Daniels here. Thunder Live, powered by Cox Communications. This was not pretty.
No, it wasn't. You know, I played on really, really good teams, and I played on really, really bad teams. And the one thing that they did not have in common with one another is how you responded to situations like what the Thunder are going through right now. So the bad teams I played on, when you lose 5 or 6, you continue to head in the wrong direction. The good teams that I played on, you took this as an accountability moment. And I'll say this from an analyst perspective. I'll never come up here and overreact because I still have the thought process of a player. So no matter what, I understand that there's a game tomorrow.
Sure.
There's another game tomorrow. You lick your wounds, you continue on, no matter what. But this Thunder team right now, each guy individually has to look at themselves and hold themselves accountable to what they need to do individually for this team to get back to where they were. Because the fact of the matter is this. For this team to get to that level, there are guys that need to play better. There are guys that need to perform better. Plain and simple. And on both sides of the ball. Paul George is Paul George. He is your leading scorer. He's your MVP candidate. But Paul George should not influence your energy. Paul George should not influence your effort. There are certain things that Paul George does influence. And obviously not having him in a game of this significance is huge.
Sure.
Not having him a couple nights ago is huge. But there are certain things that Paul George cannot control. So when you get on that plane and you get on that bus, you need to look at yourself individually and realize what it is that you're not doing that is contributing to this team not playing up to their potential right now.
And to your original point, and we showed it during Thunder Live, our pregame edition, the Thunder have had some spells like this before. 0-4 to start the year.
Right.
They won 10 of the next 11. They had a stretch in there in late December, early January. They were 1-5 in 6 games. They won 11 of the next 12. So, to your point, this team has that sort of championship pedigree thing in it.
Yeah, and you have 20 games left.
Yeah.
So you got 20 games left to figure it out. And I've said this all year. You don't want to peak at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So when that team won 11-12 in January, you hope that's not the best that this team plays, that they still have something left in the tank. Because you want to peak come April. First week of April, second week of April, heading into the playoffs. But for that to happen, guys have to perform better. Dennis Schroeder has to understand how important he is to the success of this team. Terrence Ferguson has to understand how important he is to the success of this team. Steven Adams has to understand how important he is to the success of this team. So for this team to get where I know that they have the potential to go, and they know they have the potential to go, guys have to sit down, look at themselves, and say, you know what? I need to be better, whether it's defensively, offensively, valuing the basketball, taking care of the basketball, whatever it is that needs to be done on that particular night, guys need to bring it.
It starts with me is basically the message there, isn't it? And we'll take you back to the arena now. Standing by courtside, we've got Chris Fisher and Michael Cage, guys.
Thank you, John. Well, this one tilted in San Antonio's favor rather quickly. The Thunder had a 7-6 lead. And then the Spurs went on a 15-0 first quarter run, Michael, and it seemed like the Thunder were playing uphill for the remainder of this game. Got it to within 5 in the third quarter, but just couldn't quite make any kind of significant push to get back in it, and San Antonio pushed it back up to double digits. What stood out to you?
Well, the Spurs did a good job of making shots in the mid-range. They didn't shoot a whole lot of threes tonight. They only attempted 19. They're the best three-point shooting team in the league. They only made 8. We knew that they were really a low-volume shooting team, but very efficient. The area where I thought they really got some traction in was that mid-range game. They got some timely offensive rebounds. That 38 points in the first quarter that they scored seemed like it had them chasing the Thunder. The Thunder were chasing them for the remainder of the ball game. They made a couple of nice pushes, but couldn't quite put together enough to overcome that heel and force, what I thought pressure on the Spurs in the second half. Spurs came up big again. in the second half by answering runs, making buckets when they needed to. Their bench did a good job. I thought 22 points by Rhadigan off the bench was really solid for them.
Thunder obviously having to find a way to compensate for the absence of Paul George, guys stepping up. Raymond Felton stepped up off the bench, provided a nice boost in that first half. He had 11 points, and we needed some guys to step up, and guys coming off the bench. Markieff Morris also in double digits.
Well, you put Dennis Schroeder in the starting lineup tonight, and then you flip Markieff Morris back to a reserve role, and he delivered with 10 points, did a good job, hit a big three as well. Grant was very solid, and I thought, if in the words of AD, our studio partner, you give the game ball to Raymond Felton. I thought him coming in that first half, he was solid. He was perfect from the field, scoring those 9 points, gave the Thunder a big lift.
Obviously, quick turnaround tomorrow with Memphis, but it's San Antonio's night here, deep in the heart of Texas. John, AD, back to you guys.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Michael, we chat with you guys a little bit later on in the program as we preview that Memphis game. It's one of the things you brought up at halftime, too. If our viewers didn't happen to see that part, they mentioned Raymond Felton and Markieff Morris.
Huge.
And those are guys that not only did they step up, but the young guys can learn from them.
Right. Those guys, Raymond Felton and Markieff Morris, are battle-tested.
Mm-hmm.
They've been here before. So if you see the rotation switch up or become a little shorter this time of the year, it's because Billy is choosing to go with experience. He's choosing to go with experience down the stretch. And you saw what Raymond Felton brought today. You saw what Markieff Morris brought today. I'm talking about on both sides of the ball. So basketball IQ, understanding how to score, when to score defensively, knowing strengths and weaknesses of who you're guarding. And it's nice to see Markieff Morris get some traction to try and figure out how to implement his skill set into this offense. Defense is easy.
Yeah.
Because defense, the terminology is universal.
Sure.
Everybody really uses the same thing. Offensively, you know what Markieff Morris can do, but he has to figure out how can I work this in to what the Thunder are doing. And these last 2 games, you can slowly but surely see him getting a little more comfortable.
No doubt about it. It was nice to see that. It was nice to see Raymond Felton doing what he did tonight as well. More coming up as we continue to wrap this one up. A 14-point loss. That's 4 straight losses by the Thunder, who will play again tomorrow night. That preview coming up later. Our forward player of the game is coming up next on Thunder Live. Thunder Live is brought to you by Cox Communications. With the Contour Sports app from Cox, you can watch the Thunder live and track multiple games at once, all right there on your TV. Visit cox.com/contour to learn more. And by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. Take a look at the statistics from this one at halftime. The Spurs were shooting shot in the first half a season best 57%. They finished the game at nearly 50%. Right. That's way too...
Especially at home.
Yeah.
You can now allow a team to shoot 50% from the field at home, 42% from 3 at home. You're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and then you struggle. You shoot 45% from the field. You struggle shooting the ball from 3. You struggle shooting the ball from the foul line. Turn the ball over 13 times. Your assisted turnovers are almost even. On the road, there are certain things that you cannot get away with doing. Right. At home, you have the fans to bring some of that energy to kind of offset some of those categories. On the road, it's that whole band of brothers, it's us against the world mentality. You can't win the game playing like that. And certainly the Spurs are a different /Reed better team at home than they are on the road. So, that was a double whammy for the Thunder tonight. Let us get to our forward player of the game. And tonight, it's a guy who I don't think has been our forward player of the game this year, but he sure deserved it tonight, AD. Right, and he hasn't been the forward player of the game this year because he hasn't played much this year. But I tell you what, you constantly hear people say, this guy's a great professional. What that means is, 1, he'll do what he's asked to do without complaining. And 2, when his number's called, he's ready to go. And I tell you what, in the first half, if it wasn't for Raymond Felton, the Thunder might have been about 20 points at the half. Yep. If Raymond Felton doesn't bring the energy that he brought that first half, him and Markieff Morris, this is a completely different conversation we're having. He did a great job of coming in that first half and keeping the Thunder afloat and keeping them within striking distance. And even as it is with those 22 minutes, helps not necessarily rest guys, but keep guys maybe a little ready, a little more fresh for tomorrow. Right, and you would hope so. And the thing is, with Raymond, You know, now, these past couple games, when his number's been called, he's been ready to go. Like we said, he's battle-tested. He's been in the playoffs. He knows what this time of the season is about. He may need to stay ready.
Sure.
He may need to stay ready.
Yeah, he's found himself definitely a much bigger part of the rotation here since the All-Star break, certainly, and maybe a little even before that. Let's take a look at the standings in the Western Conference. It's something we will continue to do throughout the course of this season because there will be battles all along the way. And you look at that right there, AD. Now it's a tie. Ultimately, the Thunder do have the tiebreaker over the Trailblazers, but the records are the same, and the Rockets are creeping up as well.
I tell you what I do is I pay attention besides more than the Thunder. I look at what everybody else is doing.
Yep.
You know, Denver's playing tonight.
And losing.
You know, they're losing to New Orleans right now. You know, you look at Utah is playing Milwaukee, but Milwaukee is sitting guys out. So I don't just pay attention to what the Thunder are doing.
Right.
You can drive yourself crazy doing that.
Sure.
You drive yourself crazy. With the ups and downs, the ebb and flows of a season, it's like, oh, man, you got to talk so many people off the ledge. If you watch what everybody else is doing, it puts things in perspective. You see the Thunder right now are not the only team that is struggling coming out the gates post-All-Star break. There are a number of teams that are struggling in the Western Conference post-All-Star break. So if you need something to kind of calm yourself down, reel yourself in, look at the entire Western Conference, not just the Oklahoma City Thunder.
In fact, if the Pelicans hold on to beat the Nuggets, and that game's still in progress, you'll be talking people off a ledge in Denver, and that ledge is higher. It's
no question.
Mile,
right.
You know? So, yeah, you better be careful worrying about just one team. It's a big picture, and that's why we want to show you the
always.
picture.
It's always a big picture.
Yeah. We'll show you that big picture each night on Thunder Live. We've got Billy Donovan coming up. Let's hear what the head coach had to say. I'm sure not real happy about the way things turned out in San Antonio tonight. Thunder lose it by 14. We're back to hear from the head coach right after this on Thunder Live. The Hemisphere Tower in San Antonio, Texas, former site of the World's Fair way back when. Thunder lose by 14 tonight. Billy Donovan in the back hallway just a few minutes ago.
Billy, kind of like Thursday night, it seemed like after the first quarter, you all had a better handle on the game, but what wasn't quite right to start the game in the first quarter?
Well, I think you know, we got hurt on the glass. You know, even I think I made some comments before the game to Matt that was going to be really, really important. You know, and I thought their second chance opportunities really kind of impacted us. You know, I thought at times we defended really, really well. And give them credit. I think coming into half, I think over maybe like about 53% of their total number of shots in the first half were in the mid-range, and they made 64% of them. You know, so you got to kind of give them credit. DeRozan, Rudy Gay, Aldridge, they made shots. And then, you know, guys like Bellinelli, Bertans, you know, Patty Mills, they didn't shoot a lot of threes, but the ones they made, they shot a good percentage on. And then the offensive rebounding. So that was really the biggest part of the game.
You touched
how much did the margin of error shrink for Russell and Dennis in terms of their offense when Paul was on the floor?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understand.
How much does the margin of error shrink for them when Paul is on the floor? And I mean,
what do you mean
by the spacing? Because Paul can provide that spacing for those guys. And
no, I don't think so. I mean, I thought, you know, when we moved the ball, we generated some pretty good looks. You know, Dennis didn't shoot the ball particularly well from three. Jeremy didn't shoot the ball particularly well from three. When they're getting in there, the guys are open. You know, I think we're generating and trying to pass the ball to one another, and those are shots you got to take. I mean, they're selling out to protect the deep paint, and the ball's being kicked out. But I think we've seen our team, you know, for an extended period of time, shoot the ball really, really well collectively as a group from behind the line. And this was a game where we didn't shoot the ball well behind the line. They made a lot of shots, and when we did defend well, we didn't rebound well enough. You know, that was a huge part of the game. Probably the reason they were, you know, had the lead they had. We closed the second quarter well, but I think they had 16 points on second chance opportunities. So. Yeah, I mean, listen, teams are going to sell out in the paint on Russell, on Dennis, even on Steven. You know, they're going to make us shoot the basketball. I don't think it's anything new or anything different that we hadn't seen really all year.
How much does Paul being out affect that defensive rebounding?
Yeah, I mean, his length, no question. You know, I think the one thing, you know, Jeremy's a really, really long guy. And, Aldridge obviously turned baseline several times to close the second quarter and made some really, really hard shots. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't do that. He does make them, but he really made them well tonight. So did Rudy Gay. I think you miss length on those kind of players, where you can get length into contesting shots. And we had Abdul out there some to try to give us a little length, Terrence a little bit too. But, when those guys got those shots off, more often than not, they made them.
But it didn't have a typical Russell offensive night. Or the Spurs doing anything to disrupt him?
Well, I think you got to give him credit from this standpoint. I thought he played downhill at the basket, and I thought he adjusted in the first quarter, and he started spraying the ball around, and he was generating shots for other guys on our team. So, he's, if something's being taken away, I give him a lot of credit that he was really generating a lot of really good open looks. We shot the ball extremely poorly from behind the line. We didn't shoot the ball nearly as well as they did. And then couple that with the fact that we didn't defensive rebound. But I think Russell, from a floor game standpoint, when he got into the teeth of the defense and forced them to all sink in on him, we're getting good looks. We got to take those shots. And, we just didn't shoot it well enough.
Billy, it seemed like you had a chance for some momentum at the beginning of that third quarter, but then you turned it over 5 times in the first 6 minutes of the third. Did you feel like there was a missed opportunity there to gain some momentum?
Yeah, no question. We had some turnovers, and we had our opportunities to kind of cut into it. I thought we came out of the locker room with a good mindset, and we got off to a good start. We scored the first few possessions. That stretch there probably wasn't great for us.
What goes into the decision to start Steven on LaMarcus Aldridge as opposed to Jeremy Grant? Because I think you kind of went back and forth between who you would guard and Jeremy.
Well, yeah, more of the last 2 times we've played, Steven's always guarded him. Mm-hmm. Now when Steven fouled out the first time we played him, we used Jeremy on him in the overtime games. Steven picked up 2 fouls right away. Terrence have done a great job of, when the ball's gotten thrown to them, shot faking and driving it, which has been good, but they're not necessarily, in a lot of pick and rolls, and they're not handling and breaking guys down, and they're not in ISO situations where they can take a guy. They're really kind of attacking closeouts, attacking the defensive rotation, and they've done a good job of that, so we need that. And then having another ball handler out there can generate and create a little bit more of that for us.
Billy Donovan echoing some of the sentiments that AD has already expressed here on the program, including thoughts about Raymond Felton. He also talked about how, the shots weren't falling, and they have a lot this year, and they weren't making shots, especially from beyond the three-point line tonight. And your point was, I thought it was great. That's when they have to live to that same identity that we've talked about so often this year.
You can't compound struggling shooting the basketball with lack of defensive awareness and IQ. Mm-hmm. You can't add those two things together. There are certain nights where you're going to shoot the ball extremely well, and on those nights, you can kind of get away with taking defensive shortcuts. Mm-hmm. But on the nights where you are really struggling to generate points, you're without your MVP caliber player, you cannot take shortcuts defensively. So that's the time where you have to lock in and hone in more than any other time. And this time of the year, what you realize this time of the year, like I said, it's a big picture thing. So you pay attention to the Thunder, but also look at the other 29 teams. This is called the pressure time of the year. There are 20 games left. So if you perform well, it's going to be magnified. But if you struggle, it's going to be magnified as well. So those two things go hand in hand with playing in March and also in April. If you come out and you perform well, you will be praised. Big time. It's almost like playoff performances. Mm-hmm. But if you come out and you struggle, too much is given, much is required. The same way we praise guys, we also have to offer critique when it's needed.
Yep, and this is the first one in March. Thunder, not off to a great start in March, but they'll have a chance to go ahead and get another one under their belt in March tomorrow. We preview that game as we continue Thunder Live, and we'll preview that game against Memphis. That's coming to town tomorrow. We're back to talk about it next. Thunder Live is brought to you by Cox Communications. With the Contour Sports app from Cox, you can watch the Thunder live and track multiple games at once, all right there on your TV. Visit Cox.com/Contour to learn more. And by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. Thunder Live is brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Well, tomorrow night it's it's a tough back-to-back. It's the Memphis Grizzlies who come to the Chesapeake Energy Arena. Thunder Live comes your way at 5:30. Terrence Ferguson and the rest of his Thunder teammates will sleep quickly, maybe sleep on the plane as they head home tonight and get ready for those Grizzlies. Speaking of T-Ferg, he was 3 for 6 on the night, had 7 points. Let's hear from him in the visiting locker room from San Antonio.
Thursday's game, where after the first quarter you all settled in and played much better, but what was not quite there to start the game tonight?
Rebounding. They killed us on the offensive rebound, getting second shots, and that's when they really took off on us. And we didn't really punch back as hard as we should.
They took 29 non-paint twos against most other teams in the league. You guys would be ecstatic with that. How do you feel about the way they shot from that mid-range jumpers and what you guys were able to do defensively tonight against that?
I mean, we know how critical a three-point shooter team that is. So, we want to, bait them to shoot non-paint twos. That's the goal. The percentage of non-paint twos for them is not really that high. So, it was good, but like you said, they knocked them down, so it didn't really work to our advantage. But the main part was just offensive rebounds, and it definitely killed their second shots and just easy buckets.
Terrence, what changes for you all when Paul isn't in the game? Y'all haven't had many games without Paul this season, but what do you notice when you don't have Paul out there?
I mean, we're missing one of our key players, one of our scorers, one of our main defensive players. So, we just next man got to step up, and we can't make any excuses for him being out or whether he's here or not. No matter what, we got to play basketball. That's what we're here for. And but like I said, his defensive presence, it definitely is big for us.
Anyone else? Thanks, Ferg.
Thanks, sir.
Terrence Ferguson on Thunder Live, powered by Cox Communications. As we mentioned, it's a back-to-back for the Thunder. They take on the Memphis Grizzlies at home tomorrow night with a preview. Here are Chris Fisher and Michael Cage.
Quick turnaround for the Thunder, returning home for the back end of a back-to-back, welcoming the Memphis Grizzlies for the second time in Oklahoma City. A Memphis Grizzlies team, Michael, that we're used to seeing in the playoffs, but quite a different story this year, but still with Mike Conley, who's always a very good player.
That's right. He's a terrific young, not young point guard, but he's working with a young team. Jonas Valanciunas coming over in the trade for Marc Gasol has been very solid in the middle. J.B. Bickerstaff noted this is a young team built for the future, but they got young, strong inside players like Ivan Rabb, who was a second-round pick a couple of years ago, who's in the starting lineup. So you have to respect what they are, even though the Thunder have dominated the series.
Young rookie talent, Jaren Jackson, he will be out, but the Thunder have won 8 consecutive against Memphis. We'll try to snap this 4-game losing streak and make it 9 in a row against the Grizzlies. That'll be tomorrow night, an early 6 p.m. tip time in OKC. John, AD, back to you.
Yeah, Chris, thanks very much. Michael, we'll see you guys tomorrow, 5:30 for Thunder Live. Tomorrow, the Grizzlies coming off a big win in Dallas. So, it's even. They're traveling to Oklahoma City from Dallas. Thunder traveling to Oklahoma City from San Antonio.
The difference is Memphis ain't playing for nothing.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Memphis is not – they're not trying to make a real playoff push here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They're going to play hard. Players don't tank, nor do they know how to because they have a competitive nature. But this team is going to come out and play extremely hard, as the Dallas Mavericks saw tonight. Yeah. And they beat Dallas by 30.
Yeah.
And it's a different team because they still do have Mike Conley.
Right.
But now Marc Gasol has moved on, and they replaced Marc Gasol with a younger Marc Gasol and Valanciunas. And then they got some really good bench and role players from Toronto. They got Darrell Wright. They got C.J. Miles. So they have guys that can contribute and help them win basketball games because now it's not about this year. They're more towards building toward the future.
It is still a rivalry, and it will be here on Fox Sports Oklahoma, beginning with Thunder.
Got to get it, though. I tell you that.
Boy, it's big.
The way the schedule is set up, that's one you have to get.
It's a big one, and it's right here at 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. We thank you for joining us tonight. It was not a pretty picture in San Antonio tonight, but the Thunder will try it again tomorrow. Thunder lose it tonight, 116-102 was the final. And so for Chris and Michael and Nick, they're at the arena in San Antonio. And for Antonio Daniels and our entire Fox Sports Oklahoma crew here in the studio, we thank you for joining us tonight. I'm John Rhadigan. We'll see you again tomorrow with another edition of Thunder Live.